What's going on, everyone? Back again with another episode. Before we get into everything as we prepare for the 2024 election, be sure to follow us on all of our social media. That includes X, Instagram, and TikTok at WRGO Pod. Be sure to like, listen, or subscribe on all of our streaming platforms, including YouTube or wherever you listen to audio podcasts. We finally got the gang back together. Mackenzie, Henry, how are you all?
Doing good. It's been a while.
Has been a while. Henry.
Bless, bless, and bless, and bless.
All right. And for those listening, Mackenzie recently celebrated a birthday. So congrats to her. If you all are listening to this, it is Wednesday, October 2nd. Yesterday, on Tuesday, October 1st, there was a vice presidential debate. Um, the first question is, did you all watch or did you just watch clips? That's the first question I asked.
I watched. I watched. I was late. I was late to the start, but I definitely watched. How about you all?
I
I
sadly did.
I watched snippets. I was like in and out. It wasn't that entertaining. I'm gonna just be honest.
No, it wasn't.
I was in and out. I wasn't really like focused on it. They weren't talking about that.
I mean, honestly, that was my first time really hearing the Vance guy or Trump's vice president pick speak for real. Like I've never really paid attention to him, and honestly, I do feel like he spoke very well. Honestly, the way he spoke was like he was trying to position himself to run for something bigger. Like it definitely seems like a setup. Like I might not win this, but the way he was just talking, how they were agreeing and he was just kind of, I feel like trying to straddle the line a lot. I'm like, I think you have your eyes set on something bigger.
Okay, so to that point of the agreeing part, well, one, I do agree that Vance spoke decently well. Like I don't want to say very well, because yeah, but he spoke well, like he was prepared. But also to your point, like Walls kept agreeing with him or kept like Trump actually did, or something like that. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, he started, I mean, we'll get to the moderators a little bit later and like the framing of their questions, which I think were kind of weird. Um, I think I agree with, I mean, to continue on the agreeing, I agree with what both of you all said. Um, I think Vance he's like awkward and actually like a lot of like his personal interactions with people, and he is like a weird dude. Like I will say that, but I think, um, he kind of came off as like his education, like he went to Yale Law School. He's a former like investment kind of venture capital person. So I think he's like a professional at kind of like just BSing. And I think he was kind of like in this moment, I can't go like guns blazing to Mackenzie's point, or else it'll have actually downstream effects if I lose. Like if the bottom falls out and I'm kind of this really out there weird guy, that's actually not good for the rest of my career if I want to run for president again or if I want to do something else. And to your point, Henry, Walls just seemed nervous. Like it seemed like he was almost overthinking it. And it seems like he was trying to kind of then straddle it. He got better as it went on. But I was kind of disappointed. I think maybe my expectations for him were a little too high. And I think I'll be honest about that because I think he's been really, really good, at least in terms of like connecting, being really quick. But Mackenzie, what did you think? Because I was kind of like, when it's his first answer, I was kind of like, oh shit, this might be bad.
Yeah, I would agree. Like I guess I definitely was expecting Waltz to be a better speaker. He used
Fix it, Jesus.
I'm sorry, excuse me. He used a lot of examples of stories that you can like try
Mm-hmm.
to relate to people, and that works in the campaign on the campaign trail. I feel when you're having that one-on-one interaction, but on a debate stage, it just seemed like
Takes too long.
two takes too long, kind of not BSing because I felt like all those stories were true and genuine, but I just felt like during a debate you're trying to hear about policy and actual like in an interview. Here's the results. Here's like it's like a formula, and I just feel like we kind of got lost in the stories because I'm just like, what? One of his stories, I literally was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I think that's where like at one point I was trying to say, okay, maybe him like not coming off as polished or whatever is more humanistic and people will
Mm-hmm.
relate to it. He was a teacher, that's his whole thing, right? But at some point it became distracting because to your point, Mackenzie, it was like, okay, like you're kind of ranting about what? uh, so that's where for me, I was just like, like I would be. He's a good VP pick, you know. Go there, smile, take pictures, do your little governing where you govern. You're not the president. He was attempting to sell Kamala like a lot, which
Mhm.
I appreciated because that's the
The job.
focus. So yeah, yeah.
But to your point, Henry, I think he was tying himself a lot to Kamala, but he didn't really tie Vance to Trump as much as I would have liked. Because I think there were so many moments where he could have been like, yeah, you're saying this, but like you're running with a person who thinks the exact opposite. So like he didn't, I think, kind of like put him on the hot seat and been like, yeah, that sounds great. Your running mate doesn't think that. So
You're
what would you
saying
do?
he should have did that more because I think
He should have did that more.
attempted.
I think he attempted, but I don't think he did it in terms of like you and your boss are on two totally different pages with this. And I don't think he basically said like, hey, I would have, and I think this is kind of like the frustration that I think Walt has a really interesting personality, but I also think that he kind of didn't really deal with him in like that Kamala sense of like the sarcasm of like, okay, like that sounds great, but like here's all the stuff that Trump has said. What do you have to say about that? He pressed him on that, and we can kind of get into it a little bit, but he did a really good job of kind of doing that with the January 6th stuff, where he like blatantly, like directly asked him, like, do you think that he did that? Like, do you think he won? And he didn't answer it, and he hit him on it immediately. I think he should have had more moments where he set himself up like that, where he was like, okay, well, on abortion, Trump just appointed all these judges. You can have that answer, but that's not true. I don't think he necessarily made JD Vance sit in it. And it was clear when he did have to sit in it, it was probably to me, that was the worst takeaway from the debate of anybody. Like JD Vance had the worst moment in that. And I also think that was the most like, that'll be the most shared moment. Nothing Tim Walz did was like bad to the point where it's like an attack. To me, that was JD Vance's moment right there was like the worst moment. But I don't think he did that enough. But I'm curious what you all think.
Yeah, because if he did do that enough, they wouldn't have agreed so much because
Yeah, right. It's like,
what Vance was saying was valid, which sure, it is valid. Like you are saying everything right. However, what we're here for is the presidency and the person you're running with doesn't agree or doesn't seem to agree, doesn't talk about these things. He did say he didn't have a plan yet. Can you talk about the plan that you don't have yet? Things like that.
he actually should have said that. That's actually
Yeah.
brilliant. See, get Mackenzie on messaging. No, I think Vance was just nervous, and I think it's almost like he was. I mean, I'm curious your thoughts, Henry. I think
You mean walls, walls.
Balls. Thank you. Curious your thought, Henry, but I had really high expectations from him. I know in our last episode where we talked about kind of the debate stuff, we had kind of really high expectations because I think he had been doing really, really well and clearly is a good candidate. Do you think kind of like our expectations got a little bit too ahead of us, or do you think he was actually just kind of like not really crisp? I'm kind of on the
Well, I
fence.
guess I'm gonna ask you, when did you see him do really well? Because that was my first time really hearing him speak in depth.
I think his VP speech during the DNC was really good. I think he comes across really well. I think all the interviews and everything else that he's done, I think he's been able to talk about his record in really good ways. I think the whole reason why he's VP is because he's just a really, really good communicator. It's not like anyone had him on a short list. I think he's done really, really well. But I think this is kind of like a moment where it's just like, okay, hey, this is all happening really, really fast. And I think it finally kind of caught up to him a little bit. That's not. I
Mm.
don't think he did bad. The numbers kind of say they just tied, which in the grand scheme of things is good. Like as long as he didn't lose, but I think he's done really, really well. I mean, Mackenzie, what do you think? I think he's been pretty good considering like the position he's been
Yeah, I
put
mean
in.
the debate doesn't really matter, like for
It
them at
doesn't.
least.
Yeah, it
Like it
doesn't.
really doesn't matter. It was just kind of like I do like the debates because I feel like in a way you kind of see a different side of any candidate. Like, can
Yeah.
they really rise to the occasion, answer these questions quickly, and to the point? But no, I think he's been doing okay. Like I think what really matters is his work in Minnesota. He did always talk
Mhm.
about, or is Minnesota
That's
right?
what I was gonna
Yep.
say,
Mhm.
Mackenzie. I
He
think
definitely always championed what he's done in his state, and at the end of the day, the work is what really matters. So yeah.
Yeah, I would
Mhm.
like kind of piggyback on what Mackenzie just said. Like, I think he did a good job at doing that. When you say, well, how you were saying, like, he's done a good job. The one thing I think he did well last night was speak to what his record has done and like speak to
Mhm.
his governorship in Minnesota. Especially like with the abortion stuff. I like how
Mhm.
he played that.
Same.
So yeah.
Yeah, and I even think to that point, it was, I mean, this got an audible laugh out of me, even though it was kind of a somewhat serious moment when JD Vance got asked the first question and he was like, "That's great. Let me tell you about me." And he all of a sudden starts telling how his mom did drugs like 5 seconds in. That was a lot. That was kind of intense. But
Watch that.
I selfishly, I actually kind of wanted Tim Walz not to kind of attack him on that, but to kind of be like, hey, the upbringing that you had, what you're doing is not encouraging anyone else from that upbringing to actually be where you are today. I really wanted him to kind of hit at that, but he never got to it. Of like, you're here by yourself, but you're not actually making sure anyone else from your town can get to where you are. Please explain that. Like, you turned your back on your people. I kind of wanted him to get at that, but I think it just didn't kind of come across. What were you gonna say, Henry?
As you were like recounting that in my head, I was like, oh, I did hear that. And I agree with what you just said. Like
It was a
he
lot.
came out trying to portray like I can relate to the American struggle and people. I'm not this high rich person. I work to where I'm at. But like the thing about people like that is like once they get to that spot, they forget the obstacles they face to get to that spot. Versus like Kamala, I think her messaging very much kind of like showcases her
Mhm.
matriculation to the point to where she's at. So
Yeah,
yeah,
because
Vance, he's funny. He's a good politician, I'll say that.
he
I
is.
he's a good politician.
Did you see the rumors that he had on mascara? I didn't see it till late, and then I
Oh,
kept
they
looking
were
at his
saying his
eyes.
makeup was bad.
I
It's
did see that. That's funny.
um, any thoughts about the moderators? I mean, I feel like we've all in these debates, we very much so been, I think, very focused on the moderators. I have a couple things that I at least think
Who
of,
was
but I
the
don't know.
moderator in the pink blazer?
I can't remember her name. They're both from CBS, but go ahead.
Oh,
I think
he
I
just
think we're
took
gonna
the
say the same
words out of
thing.
my mouth.
no,
I
the
I
don't
think
one
we're
in
gonna
the
say
pink blazer, there was something that she had said casually, but it was just like a thanks, Vance, or like
yeah.
very, very
She was like,
friendly. And that I thought was
yeah,
kind of like weird and just like inappropriate, honestly. But not like inappropriate in a weird way, but just inappropriate like at a debate
strange.
that you're supposed to be like bipartisan. It looked weird. But
It was
that's
very
all I had to say
sarcastic.
about them.
Um, I just think the first question kind of like rubbed me the wrong way personally, at least in terms of like it was a loaded question that I think is just very much so representative. So for context, the first question was essentially, I'm paraphrasing, is like, would you just straight up bomb Iran after all this stuff is happening? And it was kind of like it very much so kind of ignored all of the context and everything else. And it was just kind of like, here's the predestined like solution. Answer it under this guise. And if you're not answering in that, I'm going to press you, which then indicates if you're doing something wrong. I didn't personally like that because I just think it was not like, hey, would you bomb Iran? But like, how do you assess the situation? Or what would your actions be as VP? Or what would the Harris or Trump administration be? I just thought it was a really loaded question, but I think that's kind of the place that we're in with this situation. I personally had a very big problem with that. Um, Henry, any thoughts about the moderators? I mean, granted, it was a boring debate, so
um they weren't memorable. They didn't do a great job, I don't think. Like the girl in the blue was trying to maybe put her foot down, like, okay,
yeah,
time's
Yeah,
up.
she seemed like the serious one.
Right.
she
She was
just
trying to be all like, this is my time. I'm gonna get another job after this debate. Like
So now that we are officially almost around 30 days out, both a mood check. How are you all feeling about the campaign? How are you feeling about? I feel like Kamala's kind of not. She hasn't been as kind of out there. She's I think been more strategic. But
that's
I'm
what's
curious how you
pissing
all.
me off, especially in Georgia, because girl,
She's
you're
about to do
not
the
loud
HBCU
enough.
tour. She's about to
Mm,
do the HBCU tour.
Okay, so look, that's cute. That's
That's
cute.
in. She's obviously gonna go to Atlanta.
Listen. That's cute and all. She got the black vote. Like we know we vote
eh,
Look,
with
go
black
well,
young
get up
by
and
people.
go look in the
by
mirror. Get up and go look in the
yeah,
mirror.
I was gonna.
No,
Get
We
up
can
how
and go
say
look in
like
say
the
black?
more.
mirror.
Okay, like you
Say
got it.
more.
Black men, especially in the South, they're like, I'm not
Mm,
participating.
They not
Mark,
participating. Or my favorite new thing that black men are saying is that they're going to support the Green Party because they're independent and radical.
Yeah,
Yes.
I ain't heard that one.
I
Yeah.
have.
I
But
haven't
say
heard
more.
the Green Party, but I definitely, I when I said black vote, I meant like the like going to HBCU is like you got that already in my head. Like it's presumably like that's
I
no, she don't have that locked in.
yes, in terms of like the number, but I think to what Mackenzie is getting at is that the number isn't as high as it needs to be. And especially among the main problem is and I think this is potentially the thing that honestly might lose her the election is black men between the ages of like 18 and like 35.
You
They're
can go a
not
little bit higher than that. You can go to like
I could go to
59.
I could go to 40. I think
You can
after a
go to
certain age it
59.
stops.
You can go to 59.
Because that's too broad of a problem. That's too broad of a problem. I think
Bro,
there is a
I'm
specific
telling you, I'm not like to that
You
point.
saying 18 to 59. You know, that's a lot of that's a lot of black men.
No, like
that's
no,
everybody.
look, hear me. I'm not even trying to be funny.
I know you're not. I know you're not.
I'm not
I'm just
I'm
focusing
not
it more on
even
a
I'm
specific
not like on
group.
some real when I sit back and have engaged black men
Mm-hmm.
about this election, they they laugh it off like, bro, we ain't talking about that right now. Or bro, that ain't got nothing to do with me. Or I'm
I
not voting.
It
I
don't got
agree.
nothing to do with me. That's
But I'm
funny.
just telling you the truth. I'm telling you the truth of what I've experienced with black men. Now,
You better
granted,
off just saying you don't care, but to say it don't got nothing to do with me is just kind of crazy. But I
Um,
understand. I'm
I
your
don't understand because I think truthfully, if it was Trump and Biden running, they'll pay more attention and have more of an opinion.
You think
I don't think
so?
so. Oh, I totally disagree.
They will have more of a formed opinion in my
Did
on
they
my
have a formed opinion before Kamala was in the race?
yeah, they was
Mm-mm.
going for Trump ass.
And so now
This
they don't care?
Now it's like
this problem existed the whole this problem has existed for a while. I think that's my belief. But go ahead, Henry. Or rather, what do you think the difference is between the two? I'm
I mean,
curious.
true, like
Be honest.
hate to be that guy, but like black men do not with black women in power. And like a lot of the times when if you hear or if I've heard like bro, like she just not it. Why? I don't think she qualified or they'll make up some bad lame excuse or it's something. And I'm like, bro, like
Why are men so set on black
legitimately the
men?
most qualified presidential candidate ever to exist.
But
I would
why
actually
are
agree.
men threatened by women who got their ish together? Like, what is it
I
psychologically?
mean, but like the funny thing is, that's why I was personally focusing it on like 18 to 35 because I do think it gets to like, I mean, this is what this podcast is for. I think it gets to a cross between like political, but also like social interaction, and I think it also has to do with like the pandemic, social media. There's a whole group of I think like our partly our generation of men who I think feel very much so disconnected, and the ecosystem that they are consuming media is I think very much so skewed towards you have to be this alpha person and you have to do this. And if it's not, and if you're not successful, it's because women are taking your success, they're doing this, they're doing that, and that is restricting upon your ability to be a man. I think it's I
I
will
feel
go on
like
my I
media
will
in life that's the conditioning of America, what you just described.
but I think it is I think there is a runaway train that I think has been happening within our own community on this kind of stuff that I think now is like finally hitting ahead of like these people, whether it's like it's I mean, it's all started with like people like Kevin Samuels, but if you're in that ecosystem, there is nothing else like penetrating it that's getting you out of that. So I think then by the time you see a black woman who's asking for your vote, you are so conditioned to see yourself as like, I'm supposed to do this and I have this standard for myself that I'm probably not living to. And that is not because of racism, not because of this, but it's just because of women. And I mean, Mackenzie, I'm
I
curious your
agree.
thoughts, but
I
like,
completely
I will
agree.
go on my bed thinking
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know men who say that they wouldn't even marry a woman who makes more money than them. Like, so I mean, a man who thinks like that, I cannot imagine then goes to the polls and say, I'm gonna vote for a woman in power to be president. Like that just, I don't feel like those worlds are the same.
I completely agree.
Oh, wait. Oh, oh. Henry, do you agree?
Right?
Do you agree about the dating a woman that makes more money? That would be a problem for you?
Oh my gosh. Is this dating podcast
I was
now?
No,
about to
yes or
say,
no? Yes or no?
Um,
Because that's the root of this, though. It's misogyny.
no,
I
it is
agree.
misogyny. I personally, I don't like.
And there it is.
I don't care
And
at the base of it. At the base of it, I don't care. But Mackenzie, we've talked about this
I
in
know.
terms of like
That's why I brought it up. But I didn't think that you still thought this way.
that
That's why I'm
controls the
really
power dynamic
disappointed.
in a relationship. Just
Wait,
truthfully,
what? What did you say?
that controls the power dynamic in a relationship.
So with that thought though, if it controls the power dynamic in the relationship, then a man, I mean, maybe you are the one that can separate both, but then that's that same man going to the poll is not gonna vote for a woman.
Bro, you see what's on my shirt? I'm hard for Kamala.
I don't know what nobody do until they get in the voting booth. Like the voting booth is
Oh,
you
get in the booth.
in the booth.
Okay, Lotto.
So I don't know what you do.
Okay,
I don't care who
Lotto.
you rap. People, there was Republicans at Howard.
Bro,
Right about that.
I'm joking, but like realistically, I'm voting for Kamala. And I think like for me, I understand like it's a bigger picture at play. And then I stand on what I said. I think she's very well qualified to do the job. Like none of the men that preceded her, even Obama don't even got the resume she got.
I would agree.
So like,
Very much so agree.
you know, I'm gonna give her props. Now, when we come to interpersonal relationships and what I do in my, you know, private life, that's different than the presiding of like, you know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna stop my partner from going for, you know what I'm saying,
Yeah.
what they want or whatever, but like ideally, I'm the breadwinner.
I think then the problem is that I think even if someone like the average person doesn't can't separate it like you, and I think that's the concern is that I think like shoot like we all know people who I would assume are very much so kind of like I'm like trying to be very delicate about how I say this. It's kind of like machismo, not like necessarily with no purpose, but like machismo feeling as if they are absent of something and someone has taken it. And I think that there is a social culture that I think it's permeated really since COVID. And I think it's almost like in the political ecosystem, we have not as I say we Democrats have not figured out how to talk to those people, how to like break that wall. And I know Mackenzie, you've been talking about in terms of like messaging, but I feel like now it's all coming to a head. Like the things that people should have been doing to like reach out to these
I
people
mean,
very much
also,
so consistently, it honestly might come to a head in terms of like Democrats have not found a good messenger to reach out to young black men. And that's just me being really, really honest. I think Westmore is very good at it, but not a lot of other people are.
well, that's where my bad, Mackenzie, if I'm cutting you off or jumping ahead. But like I feel like realistically, we've talked about this before, and I think we were talking about this maybe during the governor election or earlier on in this election. Nonetheless, like directly speak, black men, especially just largely, black men want to know what my pockets look like. Like that's just the truth of the matter. Which in case, I don't think no, I don't think. How to like from a like again a black man out here. I'm trying to take care of my family. I'm trying to grind and go get it. I'm trying to flex and finesse. Whatever the case, I'm worried about some bread. If that's my mindset, like politics, I'm not worried about that too much. You know what I'm saying? That don't affect my day to day. That's how they think about it. Unless it's like a real legitimate like wrench, where it's like, let's say DEI. If it actually continues to widespread into workforces and et cetera, then that's when I think maybe you'll get more black men to pay attention. This is just my opinion because I don't like
Yeah.
realistically like when you talk to black men about what are their concerns, the only thing they talk about is like wealth building. It's
Yeah.
nothing else. They don't care about healthcare. They don't
I,
care
th-
about
I
like
think
the
my,
other stuff.
and not to cut you off, Mackenzie, I'm curious your thoughts. I think my concern, I think, is that through all of the factors that we've talked about, I think we have a generation of people, particularly young black men, who are constantly through social media being told to be one thing that they are not or cannot or don't have access to, which is making them dissatisfied. And then we're asking them to see hope in something that, but all their other kind of media ecosystem and social media consumption is telling them that they're not something or that they have to strive to be something that's not obtainable. I don't,
What specifically are you talking about in this strive for something?
I think a lot of it has to do with building wealth. You're supposed to have access to women, access to all these things. Like it's a very specific type of like, I mean, all these, I mean, think of if you think of like Fresh and Fit podcast, all these other like what we say toxic podcasts or toxic like content creator spaces that unfortunately a lot of people consume, and they're constantly being told that like you as a man deserve X, you as a man deserve Y, you as a man deserve this. But it's like if that's just not obtainable for socioeconomic reasons, geographic reasons, you're naturally going to feel upset if all you're hearing is you should be aggrieved for not having this thing that might not even be obtainable. And then we're asking someone to feel hopeful about voting for someone when they're constantly getting back stuff that's telling them like you're not either
But
good enough or the
that's
things
kind of
that
what
you.
I'm trying. That's what I'm saying. Not even kind. That's literally what legitimately where I'm go. That's how. That's what I'm saying. I
Well, I'd be
guess
curious
speaking
to hear
from
from
my
both of
like.
you all. I just don't know how you break out of that. I really don't. I think it's like a really big concern for me. I don't know how we break out of that, or I don't know how Kamala breaks out of that. I really don't.
You want to
But
be? That's where they want us, bro. Like if we want to go beyond the depths here and have like a real conversation, that has always been the like aim and goal for black men. If they can't use us in the industrial space or in fucking sports, they don't want us, bro. They don't want us in the boardroom. They don't want us in suits. Like I've said this my whole life, and that's why I feel like I want to be this successful businessman because like I've never known of Robert Smith. Ain't this the dude named that the billionaire guy? I didn't
yeah,
know about him until he did that, paid that debt off. I didn't know about marketing being a career until like I got in it. If I'm being honest, the I as a kid, my only hope was like, oh, Henry's gonna be a lawyer because he has a sharp tongue and he whatever. And y'all know this for a fact that that's what I went to school with and I thought I was gonna do up until like I got in real life and it hit the fan. And I think a lot of black men get caught up in that. Like you don't really know what your options are, what opportunities you really have. And that's the conditioning they want to. That's what they where they want us, bro. And unfortunately, that's the truth. And they not worried about no dang on politics or voting because it's like, bro, this don't affect my life. And the only ones that maybe are tapped in are the ones that have maybe they got a business. And like for them, they're more on the conservative side because, like, well, shit, if I got it out the mud, you need to get it out the mud. Or you was lucky enough to get an education. And if you wasn't, if one of those sports guys that went to a PWI and you somewhat start to become conservative because, oh, I'm the only one type guy, you might be a liberal, but you're not voting in every election. You might vote for the president when it's important, or you got a girl that care enough to push you to do it. But like, I mean, Noah, please stop me if I'm wrong.
no, I know. I was actually going to go to Mackenzie and say I think Henry and I think are seeing this largely the same, but in different sides as black men. I'm curious from your perspective as a black woman. How do you see it? I'm
I
very
mean,
curious.
I feel like when it comes to, because everything you said, Henry, I still feel like if Kamala gave people money during the pandemic, like if she was president during that time, I still don't feel like men would have been like, I gotta ride for her going forward. Like, I don't really necessarily feel like if Kamala made a direct impact to men's pockets, that men would immediately switch and then just be like, oh, I'm really behind this woman. You know, like I still think that there would be some type of gripe because she's a woman.
Well, no, pause. For me, is bigger than Kamala. Honestly, she's just getting the brunt of it because it's kind of like again matriculation of all these things that have happened over the years. The Democrats have largely ignored black men. Like if you think about key issues, they're talking about abortions. Black men don't give up because if I don't want to take care of the child, I'm not. Unless you put me on papers, I mean,
Well,
I hate
what I mean, what issues do black men care about?
that.
Jobs? They be talking about jobs.
That's literally what I'm telling you. And
No, but
where
but
in these
there's some
like
nuance there. There's some nuance there.
Because that's I'm like, what else could they be doing? Because
Yeah,
like you said about money, that's all they care about. They talking about jobs. They have a Build Back Better plan. Like I see it all over across New York. Like I see at least the banners. I don't know if what's really happening.
the
But
that
what else
becomes
could
the
they be talking
reality
about
of
to really
obtaining
connect?
those jobs and me actually getting better pay wages, me actually being able to do better for myself. So that's when it becomes like because these people, not these people, black men may not understand the ecosystem of politics to where like again they're not tapped into local elections to where you could vote for your let's say your governor that should be the person pushing issues about state wages, right?
hmm
Or somebody on your state representation. These people not tapped in enough to even like vote in those situations per just again general perspective and analysis. So when we talk about a president, I really don't give about that because what she lying. She gonna sit up here and say I'm about to I can go buy this house. She gonna help me with a home whatever program, and then it's gonna take years for me to obtain that, or I'm gonna have to go through this obstacle and that loop and this
I
whatever.
mean, you're right. Like I'm 100% sure that
That
that's the thought process. However, I still feel like it's just I don't know what they could do because I do feel like there's
same.
a part of men in this type of situation that just aren't gonna see like the other side of it. Like I feel like even if what was the example you just used? Trump. So Trump was running on stuff and he had never been president, but men were all the way behind him just because of his previous track record as a businessman. But he was running on hypotheticals too.
you just said it though. He would they
But I
You
guess.
just said like they can maybe relate to this guy because he's a self-made billionaire and blah blah blah. So
But you
like
I
to
can't
still
relate
Noah's
to a
point,
black
no,
woman.
no,
I
no. To
still think it's
Noah's point
yeah.
though, of all of this social, you know what I'm saying, media consumption, and I'm looking like, oh, I'm supposed to be this rich, successful guy, and blah blah blah. So of course they're gonna, and then
You know what this goes into? I'm sorry, and I hate to say this, but some black men I think just want to be a white man. Like that's just what this is because I feel like how are you related to a white man before you're relating to a black woman who you have a black mom, you have a black sister, you have black friend like
you
you
know what social conditioning is, Mackenzie, in a social hierarchy. So
I
like
mean, I get it, but I'm saying like I
that's
think
literally
really the
what
root
it
of it
is, though.
is that a lot of black men want to be white men.
I
I mean, and I
don't say want to be white. I think it goes to like you. Let's say how we didn't want to talk about this P Diddy shit, right? And during that conversation, it was like, oh, Epstein did or whatever did it, right? It's not that. Like, it's not
What
that.
you mean?
It's not that I want to be white, but do I want to be able to walk around with the same confidence and fucking rights, I guess is the word, or freedoms as a
Yeah.
white man? Yes.
Okay,
So
fine. Do
that
they
I
want
that
to
mean
like actually be skin color white?
no,
No.
I don't think that's what I'm saying. I don't think that's it. I don't think that's that.
I think it
And
has
then,
to
but
do
my
with
thing is though, even in that example, every single time you forget, you're reminded. And that's why
yeah,
I'm just like, why do
and
you
I
What
think
you
that
mean by
it's
that?
okay for you to you think it's okay to aspire to be this macho businessman and you run with his hypotheticals, but then when it comes to a black woman, then you gotta check her, you
Oh,
gotta make sure
you're a bit more
it's all
apprehensive.
good and all that, but you didn't do it for him because you want to be like that, even though you know in the back of your mind that you will never be that.
yeah, and I think it also has to do like this is like a similar conversation to like how a majority of white women in 2016 voted for Hillary or voted for Trump, even though hypothetically or kind of with the context of history, it wasn't necessarily in their best interest, given that a lot of people who are upset, or a small people number of people who were upset about, Clinton, then got their reproductive freedom taken away because of Trump, and I think it's a similar instance, and I kind of see your point, Mackenzie, in terms of like kind of when it all comes down to it, when it's really like nut crunching time, for better or for worse, there's always a default to, I think, gender, and there's always a default to sexism and misogyny that usually falls on the side of only white men. And it's like you kind of can't, if there's like this person versus this person, the default is always the white man for like whatever social conscious, unconscious reason. That's always people's default. And I don't know what that is. And I think like I'm really concerned about
What
this.
are you
Like
saying
as
you
like
don't know what that is, Noah?
I'm only saying I don't know what it is because I don't think that way. But like I said, I think it has to do with a lot of, I mean, we just had like a 20-minute conversation about it. I think it has to do with so many different things. But my concern is that like this really complex thing that has to do with social media, has to do with how we're being engaged, education, access to economic opportunities, like all these other things could actually have a really big impact in costing Kamala the election. Like I really believe that in my heart of hearts, given that like the most important states are states where we live, like or like us as people, Georgia, Pennsylvania. Like it might literally come down to, and like this is the thing, I don't think it's a lot of things of like whether you're going to vote for Trump or Kamala. I don't think that many black men are actually on the fence about that. I actually think it's, are you going to vote for Kamala or are you just not going to go? And I think a lot of people are consciously choosing not to go. They might be sympathetic to Trump. I don't actually think they're going to pull the lever for him. They're just going to say, this doesn't mean anything to me without actually the context and understanding that if it doesn't mean anything to you, that's actually supporting Trump.
I
That's
agree
my
with
concern.
that. I
That's my
agree with
concern.
that. Like, and to that point, Mackenzie, like that's why I say it's not that. Like, black men are aware of the black, you know what I'm saying, issues we like the racial issues we face as a culture. And to what Noah said, like it's like, okay, I know what my choice should be. So I'm just gonna not participate.
However, I'm going to push back. I'd like to think this is what Mackenzie would say. It's a very narrow focus on blackness. And I think that's the problem.
I
It's a
mean,
very,
like, I wouldn't disagree with that. Like, I'm not saying I think y'all know my role, but I'm
Mhm.
just saying, like, bro, like on some just like nigga shit, like you know what I'm saying, like, bro, I'm not thinking that deep about this. Like, you see the accent I'm putting on right now. I don't talk like this on a regular basis. I'm doing that on purpose. Like, come on now, like,
and,
nigga
and I
don't
think
care
that's,
about that, bro.
but that's the frustrating thing is that I think the people who are most likely to be the most pivotal people are actually the people who are going to be most impacted by it. And
And that's the to your point of what you just said, lack of resource, lack of just exposure, lack of all the education, bro. Like most of these folks ain't even got no damn high school graduate diploma.
I'm not even putting it on that anymore. I'm not.
I
I can't.
mean,
I
okay,
can't.
so like yes
I
and
know
no.
too many educated people who I think to Mackenzie's original point see it through the lens of solely misogyny. I can't just break it
Right.
down to
Like I hear
simply
what
just
y'all
a
are
like,
saying. I
yeah.
definitely hear what y'all saying about like black men not wanting to be white. Like I don't think that, but I
Neither do
do
I.
feel like just how casually how like so many black men didn't think twice about voting for Trump, but it's always like a second guess, a think, let me think twice when it comes to a woman. Like I just feel like I mean because it's like you could say you don't care, but like you didn't care, but you was so gung-ho for Trump, but you didn't care. So like now all of a sudden now you don't want to participate, but you don't care. Like it's just like let's just be real. You care and you just want to vote for a man. You just don't want a woman to be in that position. Honestly, I think that if we can just say that, maybe we can get further. But like, I feel like a lot of times men don't just want to say, listen, I just don't want to vote for a woman.
We're not
And
being
that's
real
just
about it.
what it is. And I'm not going to. And then we can move on. But then it's just like how you said, like, oh, well, they just don't care. They care. They didn't care enough to vote for Trump, but they now care not to participate in this election. That's a statement.
I'm not here to disagree with you.
I mean, I'm not either. I did.
I don't
They
think
be
you're wrong. I don't think
they
you're
are
wrong. I don't think you're wrong.
misogynistic. You know the that's the unfortunate truth of it. We live in a classist, sexist, racist, prejudice,
And
pre-stereotypical notion oriented world. Like, excuse me,
and
Mackenzie
I think to
passed
your
your
point,
code through the Zoom, man.
I don't know, man. I
but
don't.
I think to your point, Mackenzie, I think the point in which is truly your lived experience is that at that intersection, Black women are hurt the most, and this is kind of a classic example of at the intersection of race, gender, all these other things, is a very smart Black woman who is being hurt because of just who she is, and I think that's probably your lived experience, and it's the lived experience of so many others. It probably makes it even more frustrating for women who look like you.
I hate to
And I
quote
think,
Malcolm, but the
yeah,
most disrespected woman in the world. Unfortunately, like, bro, I like. Why does this sound like a more? We gotta get our energy up. Kamala gotta win. We got a couple days.
I
I
mean,
mean, I'm definitely still confident. Like
yeah,
I'm
I feel
still
good. I feel good.
energized. I
Really,
have
like
very high hopes.
I'm scared about Georgia, bro. I'm not even gonna hold you.
I mean,
The
when are
funny,
you never scared about Georgia at this
yeah,
point?
we should always be. The default should be we should
Yeah.
always act as if we're down. Like the funny thing is, I think her campaign is doing like the right. They're still continuing to do the right things. Like even her appearing on there's this basketball podcast that's through Showtime called All the Smoke. Like she's doing the right
I
things.
seen that. I
She is
seen that.
reaching people
Yeah.
where they are. Like her just by her doing that is a brilliant
Okay, so
decision.
let me give you some pushback besides because this is the thing too. Like voter suppression, gerrymandering, so on and so
Hmm.
forth. Like a couple weeks ago in Georgia, they passed legislation where all votes got to be counted by hand.
Hmm.
Stacey
Yeah.
Abrams was cheated because they did some stuff like that right
Hmm.
before the governor election. So they already telling you they about to cheat because how the you about to count all these votes by hand? Nonetheless, they like how that's where I'm confused on how Trump running, how they're able to do this, like where the lawsuits, who's the overriding board, but then we talk about the Supreme Court and we know which way that's heavily leaning. So it's like, are we really screwed? Because let's
Mm-mm.
just say
No.
it does become it goes to the court. Let's say it's found out that they cheated in Georgia, or all of these hypothetical things that this man has been proven guilty of, and is in this race for. That's where I'm like, how, like,
And
what is really about to happen, bro?
the thing that I think makes me actually most hopeful is that I think Kamala is actually or Kamala. If I get better at that, Kamala is actually
Hey,
running a
black man.
real. She is actually running a real campaign, and I think like her people are very much so aware of this. And Stacey Abrams was aware of this, and like, yeah, it's a hurdle that we have to get over in terms of like, yes, there is voter suppression, but it's at least like something that we know and that we can actively like push, drive, get out the vote. And I think like Trump's not really doing any of that. His campaign strategy is literally just like him doing a couple rallies, being on like he doesn't really have an organization. And like usually I'll default to like who just is kind of more buttoned up. Trump's not really actually doing anything to actively like help himself. Like he's really not. And Kamala's doing all the right things. And the benefit of her raising all that money is that she can hire a bunch of people to be everywhere. She can have ads. She can do all these things. She can spend time on all the smoke because she has $500 million to pump out ads in Georgia, to pump out ads in Philadelphia. Um, I hope she does stuff like Club Shay Shay and a couple other podcasts that I don't necessarily think are like informative, but like they just have the biggest reach. Like I hope she goes on the read. I hope she does like a bunch of different stuff. Funny enough, you know what she actually did do, which we talked about a couple months ago. She did that little Google thing where it's like it is Kamala Harris, and they like remove that little strip and it like fills out the answer and she answers it. She's doing a lot of like viral stuff. I hope she goes on Hot Ones. Like she's doing the right things, which makes me feel actually kind of not confident. I don't want to say that it's a little too eager, but like I actually feel good. It's gonna be close, but I'm curious y'all thought.
I just want to go on record. If this black girl beats a white woman from that seat, like being the first woman to be in that seat, that would be incredible. And I think I'm
Why
just,
did you just say it like that, Mackenzie?
what do you mean?
I'm gonna tell you after we hang up, but like, what?
What? What did I
The
say?
same way you just thought about that.
What do you mean?
They think about it the same way.
Oh, I've been thinking about it the entire time.
Well, that's what I'm telling you. And if you think about it like that, what the make you think they ain't thinking about it like that? Which I'm gonna just go ahead and just give it to
Oh,
them.
whatever. I don't care.
Either way, I'm
They've
good.
always been thinking that. And that's the thing. That's why this, I feel like, just plays. Why I've always been thinking that is because it was just very interesting to me when I think when she was running VP. And I just remember when Hillary was running, it was like in my face with women and just like I couldn't even was that the same year? I think it was the same year there was a women's march. Yes, it was the
Yep.
women's march in DC. And I went, and that's the first year that it was like so many women out there that it couldn't even be a march. It was just like a sea of women. Kamala then years later starts running for VP, totally different tone from women. Totally, and not women, obviously black women, all of these things, and her announcing her presidency. But it was a noticeably, at least for me and black girls, we definitely peeped that there was a different tone. So yes, I've always been thinking like if she beats out a white woman in that seat, that is powerful. That and I just feel like that will also just, at least for me, be a shift because I just feel like, I mean, in corporate, like it's white men, then it's white women, then it's black women when the pay grade. So I'm just like, I feel like that would be incredible. Of course, I've always been thinking that. How could you?
And the funny thing is just like kind of in the arc of history, like where Hillary's campaign was very much so like breaking, it was very much like in our face in terms of like her breaking that glass ceiling, her wearing white at very strategic moments during her DNC speech, during her debates. The interesting thing is that, and Mackenzie, this is actually smart, Kamala's not talking about that at all. She's actually very much so avoided that she would be the first woman. And I think that is very strategic of trying to not have people focus on that because I think they're already looking at her as black, with the unconscious of that they're now looking at her as a black woman. And I think she has never said, as the first woman
She
to be the,
hasn't. You right.
she
She
has
ain't never
never
said
said that.
it yet.
And that is smart. And it gets to what Mackenzie's talking to, that uncomfortable reality of, I think Kamala knows the hand that she has here. And she knows that she cannot step out of, she can't step out of that. She doesn't even really hint on the fact that she is a, you know, a biracial woman, or in terms of her being black, and she doesn't talk about none of that. She really stays away from the identity politics, and I think it's unfortunate, but I think it's her best case, and so far she's done it. But I do think that that kind of gets to like how she's at the intersection of both race and gender, and how for her to be strategic and win, her best chance is to not mention any of it. And to me, she hasn't. Like she doesn't really talk about like her just being black that much. She really doesn't. But
Yeah,
that's
other people bring it up, like Trump.
But wait, what was wrong with me saying that? I don't. What was the problem?
There's nothing wrong with you saying it, Mackenzie.
Well, why did you say that?
There's nothing wrong with you saying it.
we'll talk
I'm
about
just,
that off
I
Okay.
line.
just feel like, yeah,
You just feel like what?
it's not that big of a deal. Just go ahead. Go
Just
ahead.
these dead spaces are great places for audio podcasting. Anywho, any kind of final thoughts as we're about 30 days out, or things that you all are looking for? Like for me, I'm looking for her to go on as many YouTube shows as like literally possible. That's the thing that I am looking for. Because I don't think anything else matters, but just her extending her reach as much as possible. But curious your thoughts.
I mean, just at this point, she's doing everything right, but I think
Mhm.
it'll just end, the final result will be ending it on our main conversation about gender. I think it's just going to end on gender because I just feel like she's doing all the right things. She has been doing all the right things. But if somebody still come November, whatever, doesn't know who the right candidate is, at that point, I feel like they need to, that's on them because I feel like she has been doing the right things. The party has been doing everything that they could. Um, I don't know what she could do more. Like she's already gone on tour, she's doing the YouTube show, she's doing everything else. So I mean, to me, it's an obvious pick. Not even about race, just about what we talked about, like qualifications. So I mean, we'll see. I'm excited though. I'm still
Mhm.
excited. This is a interesting election this year.
Henry, final thoughts?
I agree with Mackenzie with saying like the party and the people that who maybe whatever you want to call them, they've seemed to gather around her very strongly, and I'm glad about that. I just at first there was this burst of energy and it was momentum. I just don't like I did a voter registration like a couple weeks ago, and that slapped me in my face, I guess, with the reality of how people feel in Georgia. That's just yeah. That's really what how I and ever since then I just have been like I was supposed to take this QR code to my bag. I need to do it this weekend because voter registration, Monday. I'm gonna do it. But yeah, like I personally am Kamala down. I'm out here for my sis. I'm going to knock on doors Sunday. So like
There it
I'm
is.
be
Everybody go do that.
bro, I'm on the ground. Like Georgia, I need every mother friggin' one of y'all to vote, bro. But I'm scared. I'm scared, bro. I ain't even gonna lie to you. Cause I don't want to imagine what it looked like for Trump to get in office. I stay in Georgia and like these folks, ugh,
I choose not to think about that. So, on that note, be sure to vote. Go to vote.org. Be sure to check your registration status. In some places in the South, there are actually some voter registration deadlines that are coming up. Or if you need to request an absentee ballot in your state, be sure to do that. Please, we'll put a little link for where you can do that. So be sure to like, listen, and subscribe on all of our audio platforms. And be sure to do the same on YouTube. Be sure to follow us on all of our social media accounts, X, Instagram, and TikTok at WRGO Pod.